Almighty God, creator of the universe and source of all knowledge and authority, we acknowledge and thank you for the responsibility that you have entrusted with us to direct and oversee the development plan implementation cluster in Uganda. We reaffirm our commitment to serve for the common good and benefits of people of every creed, status, race, and background. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together at this annual program review and launch of the DPI and PIAPs. We seek wisdom and pray that you open our minds to further learning. Lord, we pray that you'll be with us, you'll be in our midst, you'll guide every step and every action of what is going to happen here today. We pray all that in the mighty name of your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Thank you so much. You're welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. I will quickly run you through some housekeeping, and then I will hand you over to my co-MC for the day, Dr. Paulo Chama. But I want to thank you again for making the time to be with us here. So it is the DPI annual review today, and our theme, as you may know, we are leveraging the NDP3 lessons for effective delivery of NDP4 and tenfold growth strategy. So we are very pleased that you're part of the team witnessing this very important activity today. So as you walk in, please ensure that you do not miss the registration. It's important that we capture your details so that we can actually account for your time here. So please remember to register and ensure that after registering you have a conference folder that has all the information that is critical for us and that what we'll be deliberating on. I also, we have all the presentations that are going to be uploaded on the website in addition to the material that has been put in your bag. You can visit www.finance.go.ug and we'll have all the critical information there. I also want to guide you that if you want to go to the places of convenience, you can either use this door on my right, immediate right, or the other side towards the exit. You'll be able to see the places of convenience that side. And so again, I want to welcome you and let's participate very, very actively. We have made it simpler by creating a QR code. So you can just scan on your table. There's a card that you can scan. There's a QR code which you can scan, and you'll be able to make your comments so that we are following each other. And for those that are not able, so on your table you should be able to see something like this. So you just scan that QR code, and you can make your comments. You can ask your questions. And we'll be able to continue. In the event that you're not able to do that, we have still catered for you at an appropriate time. We will be able to open up for questions and answers, or for you to make your contribution. So we've not left anybody behind. So I would like to welcome you once again and hand over the microphone to my co-MC, Dr. Paul Chama, to take us through the next steps of the program. We are happy to have you once again.
Give a round of applause to Peter. I think he has pitched quite well, and all of us are getting into the mood for a very constructive interaction. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall be having time together to make an assessment of how far we have come since we embarked on the journey of this particular reform. And I believe many of us in this room, judging by what is on your heads, have been in service for quite a while and therefore have a perspective of where we came. And one of those challenges which beset public sector and therefore government service delivery was the apparent silo approach to a lot of service delivery situations where each aspect of government would come up and purport to deliver, and yet by working in a manner that optimizes synergy, that is collaboration, they would definitely have done better. So this reform requiring government departments to work in close collaboration through programs came up. And I think it has been in the works for quite a number of years. It has not yet taken root, but there is very determined effort to make it work. And that is where the input of those of us involved in supporting and managing change comes in. The accusation we have against and within ourselves is that we pronounced transition to a program-based approach, but that remained on paper. We are yet to realize and consummate that. So our time here together is to make an assessment of how far we've gone, and would like to encourage you to make maximum use of our time here so that we get to understand the concept and we translate this into action. There is an exhibition going on, and please, by way of enabling us to optimize what we can benefit from our time here, check around those exhibitions and pick whatever it is. Now, in our midst today, we have quite a number of participants. First and foremost, there are those who are members of the Development Planning Implementation Cluster. Ladies and gentlemen, on your tables, there is a program sheet. I would like to just go over this very briefly by way of confirming that we move on the same page. We have 3 sessions, and the first session will feature remarks, a keynote, and launch of the DPI program implementation working documents. These will be done by the Honorable Minister representing the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament. But within that session, we shall have an address from the Minister of Finance, from the PSST, and also from the guest of honor. We expect a photo session, and the DPI institutions, program institutions that have been read, will be representing all of you in that photo session. So please take note, after the launch, we will have that photo session. The second part of our review will be one where we receive feedback from the activities that have been undertaken over the past year in regard to the program implementation areas. So we shall have a DPI annual performance report, and I believe this is one of the documents in your folder. We shall also have a presentation on the PFM reform strategy performance, which is one of the important aspects of the operations of the DPI program. This will be followed by the plenary. And this is where I just want to reinforce and remind you of the point that my co-MC Peter raised. You have this placard on your tables, and there's a QR code which you should, and I believe majority of us here have smartphones. I'm not sure whether you can convert a semi-smart to a smart one, but you can also use the facility of a neighbor close to you. Scan that QR code. It will take you to a site where you'll be able to input your comments, questions, and observations. Now, I don't want us to pretend that all of us are able to manipulate our gadgets to that extent. So those of us in the analog will also have an opportunity. During the plenary, you'll be allowed to raise your hand and vocalize your comments as you deem appropriate. But please, just get practicing on this QR code. It is one way of recognizing that we are making steps going forward insofar as our operations are concerned. We shall have a lunch break, and I don't need to repeat again what was said. This is compulsory. You'll be monitored closely to ensure that you have your lunch and you return for the afternoon session. And this is really going to be an exciting time because we have a panel which will be up here, and they will be able to dissect and unpack lots of issues which are pertinent in this area of the NDP4 upcoming, our performance, and everything that will have been shared up to this point. We shall also have submissions from local government, from civil society, and we shall also finally have remarks on the strategic direction which is open to us. So ladies and gentlemen, we expect that we shall have a very enriching time together. Through the introductions, you've been able to notice where each of us is placed. Don't hesitate. Please reach out and ensure that you get answers and guidance on areas you may not be able to readily comprehend. This is a reform process. Reforms come with challenges. Reforms come with opportunities. There are losers in the reforms, but overall, we recognize that there is gain ultimately for all of us. Mr. PSST, at the time that you got in, we had discharged a big part of our preliminary activities, and as we get to officially kick off, we shall right away dive into the part where you will make your remarks and those of other designated officials. To fit within the stipulated program processes, I'll formally address the members present, a number of them in absentia, but rightfully so because we've got apologies. Mr. PSST, without much ado, I would like to observe that the season we are into has been quite busy, and the most recent where we were with you, you guided us on a number of critical aspects of effective operations, especially when leveraging lessons and driving the agenda for improved service delivery. One of the key things you pointed out is that we can guide transformation not by spending more, but by investing smarter, faster, and with greater transparency. But we also recall that you've severally guided us to avoid that mindset of a silver bullet when dealing with bottlenecks that beset our development agenda. So Mr. PSST, this time together here is an opportunity for us to look back and review how we have performed and how best we shall manage our transformation process. This review will also involve launch of the DPI PIAPS, an event which is quite significant given how far we have come. And equally, we shall also have a go-live and operationalization of the NDP4 monitoring and evaluation system. With that, Mr. PS, I have the honor and privilege to invite you to address this annual review gathering.
I will use the protocols as read out by Paolo, but recognize a number of people who are here. I can see NPA represented by the board member, and I would like to get the technical people of NPA to really come forward and ensure that they are present as we review this important program. You can see Office of Prime Minister. I can see my Director Budget and the Secretariat of our program, very, very able Secretariat of Mwanje and group, the best performing by far program Secretariat. Then all of you, the big people who are here, good morning to you all. It's a great honor to welcome you to this annual review meeting of the Development Plan Implementation Program. DPI program is the program for implementing the plan. It is one of the key programs, if not the key, because if it doesn't work, then our plan will not be implemented. I think you've heard in the past some very strong statements that Uganda is very good at making plans, but quite poor at implementing plans. I personally interrogated that statement in a study. Why are we known for making good plans, but not good at implementing them? I want to assure you, ever since DPI was formed and integrated in the plan, we have improved, as we are going to see, in implementing our development plan, despite the challenges we could be having. So I welcome all of you to this important meeting, the final one under NDP3. We closed NDP3 and we are going to tell you how we closed it. We extended invitations to all the other 19 programs. I wish therefore to recognize and welcome the members of the NDP programs who are represented here today. And I would like to know who are those members representing which program? Because I did not take the benefit of the introductions, I will start with agriculture, agro-industrialization. Who's here? Agro, you're welcome, Madam Deputy Head of Service, who's also monitoring our implementation. Which other program is present? None. So we should comfortably say we have 4 programs here out of the 20 programs. Sorry? Public sector transformation. Who's here? Public sector transformation, come forward if you are here. So we have now 5 programs. So ladies and gentlemen.
Bwana PS, there's another one here.
Development plan implementation, revenue. This is URA.
You are in this one, DPI. For you are not a new program. You are another peripheral entity. Okay, I wanted to show you the challenge we have in Uganda. The first major challenge we have is seriousness and discipline. We can write so many documents, we can be very busy in our rooms where we sit, but if we don't take seriously serious things, and we tend to promote more the small things, we shall not be able to transform Uganda. Therefore, I recognize those 5 members of the programs who are here, and it should be on record also. There is one PS in this meeting, and that's the PSST. And if he was not the one chairing, perhaps he wouldn't be here as well. That is the first disease we must get out of Uganda. I also wish to welcome our development partners in a special way, and also the civil society representatives, because you know Uganda, we are among a few developing countries that are very consultative and oriented in terms of getting both state and non-state actors in one room to plan for our future. So I welcome you, the members of our development community, but also the civil society, as well as the private sector. You have continued to extend technical but also financial support to implement our development plan. We have also continued to engage on strategic issues concerning the implementation of the plan, but also the reforms we have achieved in our public finance management strategy over the past 5 years. In January this year, when we were starting this year, Parliament approved the 4th National Development Plan, which was later, in March, signed by His Excellency the President. This was a key milestone of the DPI program, and I applaud the National Planning Authority for leading us in the formulation of this plan, NDP4. Ladies and gentlemen, that NDP4 is perhaps the best plan we have had ever in this country. It is very well aligned with our aspiration of getting the economy of Uganda to a next level of the 10-fold growth which we are now talking about. Accordingly, this review we are going to make today gives us the opportunity to jointly reflect on the implementation of DPI program and our reform strategy, but also to consider the changes and improvements which we are going to embark on under NDP4. DPI program, especially under the NDP3 when we were implementing it, was a very innovative idea. It created a mechanism which exclusively focused on ensuring that the NDP is implemented. Under this mechanism, the primary focus was to tackle factors that led to slow implementation and consequently the failure to realize the intended goals in the NDP as we had earlier planned them. Accordingly, this program has 6 strategic objectives aimed at addressing capacity strengthening across government. And these are in the areas of 1, development planning. How do we improve planning for development. It's a responsibility of this program. Number 2, budgeting and resource mobilization. You see the chief of budgeting is here, the director budget, and the URA is here to lead us in resource mobilization, plus other non-tax revenue mobilizers. The other is results-focused implementation. It's an objective of this program to see how do we implement for results. How do we move from just planning inputs but not having a clear implementation plan for results. Number 4 is coordination, monitoring, and reporting frameworks and systems. It's also a responsibility of this program to ensure that we monitor what we are doing, evaluate them, but also report them in a more systematic way. Number 5, national statistics system. How do we improve data? Because without data, you can't do the planning, you can't do proper budgeting, you can't coordinate well, you can't monitor things where there is no data. That's why Uganda Bureau of Statistics is here. And then finally, research and evaluation function. How do we emphasize the issue of knowledge creation through research, more research? That's why we have academia as our partners in this program. They generate new knowledge. In the ministry itself, we have a full department for research, economic development research, to inform what we are doing. These were to be implemented collaboratively by member institutions through a series of interventions. As you will see in the presentation and the discussions we are going to have under our annual report, there are areas where we have made good progress, but there are also areas where our performance has been weak. And we are going to highlight all of these and we get a solution. Importantly, on the critical measure of plan implementation, assessed as the proportion of NDP results on target, we have registered a performance of 60% as at end of June this year. 60% is what we achieved in implementing our NDP3. But our target was 80%. I don't know why we target to implement less than the plan. We should do, my people, we should always target to implement 100%. If you can't implement it, then don't put it in the plan. Okay? The plan should be 100% target. You can't say, I am a student, my target is to score the pass mark. You're a bad student, a poor student. Our target should be to take all the marks from the teacher. You may fail to get all because of a number of factors, but the target is 100%. That is one lesson we should also learn in the targeting, Mwanje and the NPA. While this would appear fairly satisfactory to get 60% out of the 80% which we targeted, and I request that we revise that, I believe we needed to do more given the significance of NDP to our development roadmap. Madam Deputy Head, NDP 3, which we are now reviewing, how we performed finally, had a challenge. As we were finalizing it, planning for it, COVID hit. Actually, His Excellency the President signed the forward page in lockdown. The forward page, I was there, I remember. I was outside the government, but I could see things from afar. He signed the forward during lockdown. And the implementation started when the country was under lockdown. Over the past 5 years, we have just been recovering from COVID, from the other vagaries I'm going to tell you. Therefore, I congratulate Uganda for having achieved 60% of implementing a plan that itself had been written in a very huge uncertainty. The performance over the past 5 years, however, needs to be placed into proper context. This is what I mean. The implementation suffered from the effects of the pandemic, but also a global economy in turmoil due to a series of internal and foreign challenges, like we had regional wars, we had international wars, but also other factors. These had a major impact on revenue collection, especially in the initial years, but also on maintaining budget discipline. We had to divert money from development implementation to keeping Ugandans alive. Like the budget, national budget was revised. 40% was cut and given to Ministry of Health and security agencies to keep Ugandans alive. Of course, health to get us the required medical commodities and so on, but security to keep Ugandans at home. You remember the security had to give us permit, you are allowed to move or not allowed. And you know Ugandans, keeping them at home is near to impossible. So we spent money now on such things, and that's why the performance was somewhat affected. We have taken measures to address the impacts of these factors, but still their effects were prevalent, and some of them are still present up to today. What I regard as the biggest challenge has been adjusting the expectations of NDP 3. As we all know, NDP 3 delivery model was premised on a new approach, the program approach. We have program-based planning, program-based budgeting, moving away from sector-wide approach under NDP 2. This approach was intended to strengthen our focus on common results by reducing the silo approach which characterized the earlier national development plans. While we have made some progress in moving to this new approach, and I congratulate Uganda for moving from the sector-wide approach to planning and budgeting to program-based approach. It has helped us now to get more and more coordinated whole-of-government approach to solving issues in Uganda. We have, however, learned some lessons that will help to achieve better results during this NDP 4, and I want to highlight 4 key lessons we have learned from that transition from sector-wide to program. Number 1, the need to have fewer well-defined and measurable performance indicators with realistic targets for performance accountability. This is a key lesson, ladies and gentlemen, which we must learn. The need to have fewer well-defined and measurable performance indicators. In other words, to have a smart plan. A smart plan. we were over ambitious in NDP3 when we were starting our program-based approach. We set ourselves a very high target and scope. That's why you see that our only plan we had set, we said, if we could achieve 80%, we okay. Why do we put in place targets which we can't achieve? So we have learned that lesson. In NDP4, we have scaled down on the ambition so that we can put in place well-defined and realistic targets. Number two, we have learned also a lesson to have all key stakeholders, including local governments, on board in the development of the plan and the corresponding PIAPs. PIAPs are Program Implementation Action Plans. You are welcome, Honorable Minister of Public Service. So we have learned a lesson that we should have all of the key stakeholders on board, and among those key is local governments, because they are what economists call street bureaucrats. They are the ones who are very near the problems we are trying to solve in Uganda, we are planning for. We used to consult them, but not as effectively. We are learning and we are bringing them on board. But also our other stakeholders, development partners, are very actively now involved, the private sector, very active, and so on. Number three, we have also learned a lesson to set very clear priorities. Very clear priority. What do we want to prioritize? We are avoiding the mistake of trying to be everywhere, and we end up nowhere. You know, in Uganda, everything is a problem. People, when we sit down and we say, this is the priority list, somebody puts up a hand, also add this one, and this one. So you end up with a priority list of no priorities. Some even are called unfunded priorities. That terminology is only in Uganda. If something is not funded, how can it be a priority? Not everything in life can be solved in 5 years. So we have learned that lesson, that we can only prioritize a few things we can do, and then others we put them in the medium term and longer term. NDP4 is prioritizing what? ATMs, 4 things, plus the enablers. That's all. 4 growth drivers and about 8 enablers. That's it. And we are going to present them here today. We have learned that lesson. Number 4, we have also learned that coordination and oversight are very key in implementing the development plan. Hence the need to ensure their full functionality. It's a key lesson. Coordination and oversight. Honorable Minister, Government of Uganda is learning that we must go beyond lip service in providing support to institutions that coordinate us to deliver results. That's why we have our deputy head who is whipping us to implement, and she's now empowered with the resources, with the tools to do that work. In the past, we could say there is M&E in OPM. But where are the resources? Where are the resources? So we have now all these entities that are supposed to deliver to coordinate us and also monitor our results facilitated. Those who are not tooled yet, we are coming to tool you. We have learned that lesson. We have now completed NDP 3, ladies and gentlemen, and have embarked on the implementation of NDP 4. As the theme of this annual review says, let all of us leverage the NDP 3 lessons, some of which I've mentioned, for effective delivery of NDP 4 and the 10-fold growth strategy. I implore you and myself to reflect on the program experiences and the lessons under the NDP 3 to carefully consider the adjustments that we must make to improve our effectiveness in ensuring that NDP 4 is implemented even in a better way. The 10-fold growth strategy presents a very good opportunity for us to actually significantly increase the expectations of the DPI program. As you review the program, therefore, please be guided by our joint commitment to make a DPI program more effective under NDP 4, but also for the achievement of the 10-fold growth strategy. And going forward, we are going to, number one, keenly follow on the changes needed to improve the effectiveness of the program. Two, work with all programs to ensure their structures are effective, including the secretariat of the program, to monitor its delivery, the delivery of the results in that program. We are also going to continue to strengthen our financial management system to deliver budget resources for program activities. We are going to work with all MDAs and stakeholders to strengthen capacity to collect and use data, particularly administrative data, in order to move in a more accurate manner as far as monitoring the plan implementation is concerned. And finally, we are going to strengthen the capacity of the program to whip other programs to ensure they meet their commitments. I wish to conclude by inviting all of us to use this review meeting to discuss very candidly, but also constructively, the issues which affect program implementation under the DPI, and also the PFM strategy, so that we can provide insights to address them. Let us also use this process to strengthen collaboration among ourselves so that we can deliver the program and the strategy better. Let us find ways to resolve difficulties we experience in implementing our program and indeed the plan itself. We can only deliver our commitments under DPI program when we all read from the same page. I use this opportunity to thank our stakeholders. First, the government, ministries, departments, agencies, and local governments, but also the non-government, our development partners, the civil society, members of private sector, the academia, for the collaboration and support that you have given for us to achieve what we have so far achieved under a very difficult period. I've already alluded to, after COVID hit us, we were able to achieve 60% of our plan. Now we should be able to go forward and achieve much better results. Once again, I thank all of you for honoring our invitation and call upon all other programs to emulate the discipline of reviewing what we are doing and having an effective secretariat. The program secretariat should be effective to drive our implementation forward. I thank all of you for listening to me.
Mr. PSST, I'll give a very quick recap on what transpired before the Honorable Minister came in. We had a review of the content of this review workshop. You got in when the PSST was making his remarks, and he dealt with virtually all important aspects behind this reform. Going forward, we shall have a keynote from the guest of honor delivered by you, and then we shall have the launch of the DPI program implementation action plans. This will be followed by the go live and operationalization of the NDP4 M&E system, which will be conducted by the Deputy Head of Service. In the meantime, we are glad to note that the World Bank, who are some of our key partners, have joined us and are here with us. The World Bank team, would you like to stand up for recognition in that regard? I can see Barbara and Liz. You are most welcome. We appreciate this partnership. We also have the UNDP with us, United Nations Development Program. Would you like to stand up too for recognition? At the appropriate time, you will. With that, Honorable Minister, I would like to invite you to come and deliver the keynote. Thank you very much.
The Deputy Head of Service, the Permanent Secretary, and Secretary to the Treasury, representatives of the development partners here, the civil society, and all of you distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor to stand before you to represent the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament at this very, very important review of the development plan for the year 2024-2025. Indeed, all of you here, especially from government, are practitioners, you are development partners, and civil society. Therefore, it's a big opportunity to speak to such a big gathering on matters of national development. All right, I'd like to thank the Permanent Secretary and all of you members from the Ministry of Finance for inviting me to be here this morning. Thank you very much. The National Development Plan is our guiding framework for national development. And I wish to congratulate the Permanent Secretary and the Ministry of Finance in general for the successful implementation of the third National Development Plan, despite challenges over the first 5 years, including, among others, effects of COVID-19 and a few other challenges, natural disasters, name them. I believe this country has recorded good progress in development. It's true, we have witnessed a remarkable comeback of the economy following the COVID-19 pandemic. It is also during this period that we are able, really as a country, to achieve middle income status for the first time. Isn't that great? We have also observed tangible improvements in infrastructure, expanding the road networks, increasing energy generation, investments in human capital through education and health, above all, peace and stability. And this peace and stability we continue to enjoy remains undoubtedly the bedrock upon which all this development is built. For this, we acknowledge the efforts of the executive and the resilience, the patience and hard work of the Ugandan people. Let me congratulate you also on the process. The annual reviews are vital for implementing any program, as they provide an opportunity to take stock of progress that is being made and to carry out remedial actions. It is important, therefore, that this process extends to all programs under the National Development Plan, and that they are not treated as a ritual, but rather a process that helps us to strengthen and strengthen our collective effort, smoothing out any shortcomings in implementation of the National Development Plan. Thank you for involving Parliament. Thank you. In the process of developing the National Development Plan, I note with appreciation the time your team took. I appreciate the National Planning Authority leading the team. I also appreciate the interaction with our committees, discussing and reviewing the fourth National Development Plan, and in passing it. As a representative of the people, we have unique understanding of this country's development issues, and therefore this level of engagement allowed us to air these issues and have them captured in the 5-year plan. Thank you once again. It increases our joint ownership of the plan. Now that you've wound up the NDP3, I urge you to turn your attention to the NDP4 implementation with all the vigor and commitment so that we achieve even better results. We need to see more demonstrable impacts in the lives of our people under the NDP4. For example, while I recognize the attainment of middle income status during NDP3 as a major achievement, we all know that the benefits were not spread equally. High levels of poverty and rising inequality amongst many of our people remain a major concern for us as Parliament. To this end, I applaud special and target government programs such as the MIOGA, PDM, which are directing resources to these citizens of this country just on the margins. The development plan implementation is central to all this. It is the superintendent of the plan. It has to ensure that the plan is implemented. We want to see DPI program rise and effectively execute this superintendent function. This annual review is therefore particularly important from this angle, and I challenge you to make self-assessment and find ways to effectively execute this role. I also challenge you to find solutions to obstacles that have continued to limit our ability to deliver development goals and more impactful public services. Among them, resource constraints. The gap between our ambitions and our domestic revenue mobilization remains significant. This over-reliance on borrowing is unsustainable and demands innovative solutions. Absorptive capacity and delays, slow implementation, procurement bottlenecks, and project delays leading to cost overruns and denying our people timely services. Sectoral interdependence. Progress in one sector is often hampered by lag in another. Roads without reliable energy, factories without skilled workers, harvests without storage. These disconnects require superior and interministerial coordination. The demographic imperative. Our growing youth population is both our greatest asset and our most pressing challenge. Job creation and economic inclusion are not just NDP3 indicators. They are urgent national security and stability issues. At Parliament, we stand ready and willing to work with you to deliver the NDP4 and indeed be more impactful programs for our people. I've heard the Honourable Minister's pleas to reform our committees to align with the program approach under the NDP3. We are willing to look forward to working with you, Minister of Finance, to achieve this. We are also refocusing our business approach and taking a more results-oriented approach to scrutinizing and tracking of budget reporting, including ministerial policy statements and other financial reporting. We will intensify post-budget oversight following the taxpayers' shilling in major projects and programs to ensure it delivers the intended service. As you know, the Public Accounts Committee, Central and Local Government, remains vigilant in checking financial discipline and demanding accountability for any mismanagement. We also continue to support and pass legislation needed for creating an enabling environment for the plan's key objectives, whether in agriculture, industrialization, digital transformation, or the private sector development. I want to end my remarks by once again thanking you for the invitation. Thank you very much for this invitation and for the opportunity to address this wonderful gathering. I reiterate the important role the DPI program and the implementation of the NDP4. we stand ready to support this role. To all of you, dear participants, I ask you to be candid, be open in your discussion during the review. This will help us address the critical issues in implementing the program and indeed the NDP4, and to make them better. I look forward to a good outcome of this process. I look forward to receiving your annual review report. I look forward for success. Thank you for listening to me, for God and my country.
Let's give the Honorable Minister a bigger applause. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. We appreciate those wonderful words and commitments that you have made in terms of supporting the initiatives. And again, we want to thank you for the time you've made to be with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mr. Mwanje Anthony, who is the head of Secretariat, to come and give us some remarks before we actually launch the DPI. Anthony, you're very welcome to talk to us.
Thank you very much, our Director of Ceremonies. I will stand on the protocol already observed, and what brings me here is to share with you the DPI program PIAP under the NDP4. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I will straight away share with you a brief on the DPI PIAP before it is launched. My sharing, I will take you through just about the PIAP. We have always been talking about PIAP. I know many of you know what PIAPs are and what they do, but also many of you do not know what exactly we mean when we talk about PIAP. I will take you through the key challenges of the DPI program that give reason for the program interventions and expected results during the NDP4. I will take you through how the DPI program links with the NDP4. What results are we going to be looking at as a DPI program as we implement the NDP4? And then I will share with you the call to action. So straight away going into the PIAP, we have had PIAP Program Implementation Action Plan. So the Program Implementation Action Plan, members, you know that we have 18 programs under the NDP4, and each program must have a Program Implementation Action Plan. Actually, it's the PIAPs that operationalize the NDP4 goal and the strategic objectives. Without the PIAPs, you may not be able to achieve the results you want to achieve during the NDP4. And as you recall, we had a lengthy process of developing the PIAPs. I think this was for all programs. We took some time to make sure that we develop PIAPs that are implementable. So once they were approved, it is expected that the PIAP should be the main strategy and reference document for the program. So what we are launching today is going to be the main strategy and reference document for the DPI program. The PIAP informs the program MDA's strategic plans and projects. If you have a strategic plan as an MDA which is not linked to the program PIAP, then that means we are scoring or we are firing in different directions. The intention is for all of us to be firing in the same direction. So the PIAP gives the MDAs, the local governments, it focuses them on what they should plan for. And it is the PIAPs that inform the program budget framework papers, the detailed estimates that you're going to have or that you're having, and the work plan. So it's a very important document. The PIAP shows the responsible agencies that are going to be in charge of implementation, in charge of monitoring, in charge of reporting, and in charge of compiling the statistics and results that we want to see. And the PIAP provides the baselines and the targets that should be met during an NDP period. So it's a very, very important document, and I thought I should share that. It's general in nature, but it is important we know what we are talking about. I will go to my next. How does the PIAP look like? Any PIAP, a good PIAP should clearly demonstrate how that program contributes to the NDP4. Ours, which you already have in your pack, demonstrates that. So it should bear the program goal. What goal as a program we are going to achieve during the NDP4? The program objectives. It should have the program outcomes, and these outcomes with their corresponding indicators and targets. Now, this is true for all NDP4 programs. So that means when it comes to tracking performance, it's going to be the PIAP as the reference document, because it has this. It has the intermediate outcomes and their corresponding indicators and targets. The interventions that we are going to be implementing during the NDP4 period are all in there. The program outputs and their corresponding indicators and targets, and the actions that are going to be implemented during the NDP4 period. These are high level, and they are all in that program. And all the indicators have the associated metadata. Each indicator must be well defined, how it should be computed, the units of measuring that indicator, the frequency of measuring that indicator, the sources of data for compiling that indicator, and the responsible entities. So any good PIAP must have those details. And I am here to tell you that the DPI PIAP that we will be launching today has all those details, which will make easy to measure the performance of the program and the plan, NDP, as we implement it. Going to the DPI program. Why DPI? DPI just doesn't come from the air to be there as a program. There are reasons as to why you have the DPI program. And some of the reasons why this DPI program exists is to address the issues that were previously identified during the NDP3 midterm review and other studies. We have identified areas like the weak coordination and oversight over the plan, which leads to poor plan implementation, the inadequate capacity for development planning at all levels of government, inadequate domestic revenues to finance the plan, the low returns on public investments, the significant levels of fiscal indiscipline, which we can focus on public expenditure on priorities, the weak M&E systems to track progress in plan implementation, the underdeveloped systems for statistical production and dissemination, and the weak legal policy and institutional and coordination frameworks. These are the main challenges that the DPI program intends to address during the NDP4. And you should be able to judge us maybe during the second or third year on how far we have gone in addressing these challenges. Otherwise, they have been real obstacles in as far as achieving the results of the NDP are concerned. So going to the next slide, as I said, we are linked to the NDP4. Of course, the NDP4 is the main document that we are following in the next 5 years. And the goal of that is to achieve higher household incomes and employment for sustainable social economic transformation. All the programs, all the 18 programs, and everything that we do on a daily basis, we are all targeting meeting that NDP goal. Anyone doing something to the contrary, I think we need another discussion. So there are strategic objectives of the NDP4, but we subscribe or we contribute to strategic objective number 4 as DPI, which is strengthening good governance, security, and the role of the state in development. That is the NDP4 strategic objective that the DPI program directly contributes to. Therefore, as a DPI program, our main goal is to increase the performance of the national and the subnational development plans. That is our main preoccupation. And under that goal, we have quite a number of objectives that we intend to achieve. We have 5 key objectives as DPI, and they are in the PIAP that we'll be launching. The first one during the NDP4 is strengthening capacity for evidence-based development planning across government. That is an objective we intend to achieve as a DPI program. We intend to achieve enhancing resource mobilization to finance the National Development Plan, strengthening budgeting and accountability systems, strengthening oversight and coordination and M&E across government, and strengthening the legal, policy, institutional, and the coordination capacity of the DPI program. Those are the main objectives that we will be pursuing during the NDP4, and they're mainly addressing the challenges that I earlier shared with you. Moving forward, we have key results. The NDP4 gives the DPI program key results that must be achieved by the end of the NDP4. The first one is around statistical performance index. The baseline is 70.74, and by the end of the NDP4, our target is 76.1 in as far as statistical performance index is concerned. External resource envelope as a percentage of the national budget, as baseline is 47.7, quite high, but we are saying we should be able to work hard. URA is here. We need to work hard to finance our own budget, and the intention is to, by the end of NDP4, the external resource envelope as a percentage of national budget should be around 12.7, down from the 47.7. Revenue to GDP ratio, baseline we have it as 14.5, which is low. I think it's the lowest in the East African region. We want to make it 18.3 by the end of the NDP4. That's a key result. Savings as a proportion of GDP, we are at 20.54. We intend to have it at 25% by the end of the NDP4. The budget transparency index measures us currently at 59. We want to improve that index to 80% by the end of the NDP4. Fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP, currently we are operating at negative 7.7. We want to improve so that by the end of the NDP4, it is negative 0.8%. The percentage of the NDP results on target, the baseline then of 23-24 was 50.4. You heard from the PSST that 24-25 we closed at 60%. The target is 80, and we have got guidance from the PSST. We should not target at 80, and that will be revised to 100 going by that guidance. And then the percentage, the DPI program performance, 52%, that is also going to go to 100%. Those are the key results. We have so many other results that we must achieve that support the achievement of these ones, but it is very, very important. I know this room is full of DPI program entities and other programs. Please note those key results are very important, and we are going to be judged on our performance by how far we have hit those targets. I just wanted to briefly share with you, this is more of focusing on results. Every program has results, the other ones are high level, but we have outcomes that we must achieve during the NDP4. The main outcome under Objective 1 is enhanced capacity for evidence-based planning, and we have intermediate outcomes that must be achieved, which include enhanced capacity for economic policy formulation for growth, improved alignment of plans, improved execution rates and quality of public investments, increased use of research and statistics for development policy and planning across government. Those are the main results that we are going to focus in as far as objective number 1 is concerned. As I told you, the PIAP that you have has details of the indicators and actions and the intervention. In as far as objective number 2, which is enhancing resource mobilization to finance the NDP, the main outcome is fiscal sustainability enhancement. And the intermediate outcomes will be increased domestic revenue performance and budget for self-sufficiency, enhanced revenue collections from alternative financing opportunities, and sustainable borrowing. Those are going to be the intermediate outcomes. On objective number 3, which is strengthening budgeting and accountability systems, our main outcome or result will be budget credibility and fiscal discipline. And the intermediate results will be increased alignment of the budget to the National Development Plan, improved budget controls across government, improved execution rates and quality of public investments. And on objective 4, which is improving delivery of the plan, the intermediate results that we want to see is enhanced coordination for the implementation of the NDP4, strengthen the oversight function for the delivery of the plan, and improved M&E performance across government. And on the last objective, which the key outcome or result is efficient and effective DPI program institutions, and improved service delivery will be the intermediate outcomes. Members, there is a lot to talk about the PIAP. As I told you, for each of these intermediate outcomes, there are corresponding interventions that are going to be implemented by various entities. We have actions, we have budget for those actions, we have output indicators, and quite a lot, which I cannot all share with you, but the beauty is that you have a copy of this document in your pack. You should be able to read it. And the next that I want to talk about is call to action, I think. What is the call to action? All DPI institutions and local government should take note of the DPI PIAP, especially the targeted program results that are to be met during the implementation of the NDP4. And we request that all key stakeholders should always refer to the PIAP as the main reference document for the program, for planning, priority setting, budgeting, execution, monitoring, and reporting. I want now to hand over back to the MC so that we can have the launch done.
Thank you for setting the pace and giving us clear insights in terms of where we are going. Clearly, you see that there is commitment everywhere from the Secretariat, from the Minister, the commitment that he has given, the PSST, and so all through the communications, I'm seeing and hearing one voice of us moving in one direction, better coordination, better teamwork, and working together to ensure that we achieve the targets that we've set. So please allow me to invite the Minister, to invite the Deputy Head of Public Service, to invite the PSST, to invite chairpersons of DPI MDS that are here, that's NPA, URA, also the development partners, to please join the Minister here in front at the red carpet. We need to append our signatures as a way of launching the DPIAP. Thank you so much. So there we have the Minister of Public Service appending his signature to indicate the launch of DPIAP today. Thank you, Honorable Minister. We have a beautiful signature, Honorable Minister, we appreciate, and it's followed by the Deputy Head of Public Service. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that, followed by PSST. They say agari awamu gegaru menyama, so let's continue. We are continuing, yeah. We are launching the DPIA P. We have a doctor representing the board of UBOS, yeah, as well. Okay. All right. I have more people that are invited there, please. Let's proceed. We have development partners, the World Bank. Then
I would like to thank the PSST and the DPI Secretariat for convening this meeting at a critical moment. A critical moment when we recall that on 1st July 2025, government began the implementation of the 4th National Development Plan running from 2025-26 to financial year 2029-2030. It is anchored in sustainable industrialization, inclusive growth, employment creation, and wealth generation. These are the commitments we made to the citizens of Uganda. Commitments, however, require discipline, they require clarity, they require systems that support delivery. It's for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, that the commissioning of the integrated web-based NDP4 monitoring and evaluation system is of strategic importance to Uganda. This system is not simply another reporting tool. It should be viewed as a national performance infrastructure facility. It connects planning, budgeting, implementation, and reporting into one results chain. It ensures that what government plans is what it funds, is what is implemented, and what it accounts for. It helps us to address some of the challenges. Actually, one of the challenges that the PSST talked about, where many times we major in minors and we minor in majors. I understand that the system is fully aligned to the NDP4 result framework and the program implementation action plans. It is integrated with the program budgeting system managed by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and this integration strengthens coherence across government, it reduces fragmentation, and it improves decision making. So we really want to call for support from all the key stakeholders, especially Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, to ensure that this system really works. I was even thinking, and I discussed it with the technical team, PSST, that we need to ensure that the way you implement the PBS and ensure that the budgeting is on the system. If you do not budget on the system, you don't get the resources. We should ensure also the reporting is on this M&E system, and if you do not make your report through the M&E system, you don't get your next cash release. The technical team will be discussing with your office to see how this can be integrated and implemented. Under NDP 3, the absence of a fully operational and integrated M&E system weakened our ability to manage the results. And if you check on the, during the review of NDP 3, one of the major bottlenecks was the weak coordination and monitoring, and mainly because of the absence of a system similar to this. Reporting was fragmented, data was often retrospective, and links between resources and outcomes were weak. NDP 4 corrects this, and the PSST has been very categorical in his remarks how NDP 4 has corrected these weaknesses. We now have a single source of credible performance information across government. This makes a shift from activity reporting to results management. It marks a shift from compliance to performance. Very, very critical. And PSST has said this. This has been one of our major challenges, that many times when we are reporting, it's about compliance. It's about ticking boxes. We have done this. But what impact have we created in terms of results, in terms of outcomes? What have we done? You have constructed a dam. Other people using it. You've constructed a road. Is it addressing the needs of the people? You've constructed a market. Is this what the people wanted? Are they using it, or they are leaving it there aside as a white elephant, and they go back to their normal business and they are selling on the roadside? What is the impact? And that's where we want to go. The true value of this system lies in the public value it enables. Timely and reliable data allows government to detect challenges early. It allows corrective action to be taken faster, and it strengthens accountability for results. Citizens may not see the system, but they will experience its impact through better services and more responsive government. Significant investments have been made to ensure that this system is operational and sustainable. A national core team has been established and trained. M&E cadres across government have been equipped, and the NDP 4 results framework has been onboarded. Program implementation action plans and metadata have been standardized. I would like to commend the National Core team for their dedication. I also acknowledge the DPI Secretariat for technical leadership, the Resource Enhancement and Accountability Program for financial and technical support, and HISP for the technical assistance provided in developing and operationalizing this system. As we move forward, ladies and gentlemen, leadership is essential. Systems do not implement themselves. I'm therefore inviting the National Core team to act as a standing national capability to support users, to maintain system integrity, and guide continuous improvement. Let me also underscore that performance reporting is a management responsibility. Accounting officers and heads of institutions must ensure timely, accurate, and credible data. This system will inform decision making, it will shape accountability, it will influence how performance under NDP 4 is assessed. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are doing today is to strengthen the machinery of implementation. We are also embarking on the process of embedding evidence in decision making. We are signaling that results under NDP 4 will be visible, will be measured, and acted upon. Ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore my honor to invite the Minister of Public Service, Honorable Mururi Mukasa, to officially activate the integrated web-based NDP4 monitoring and evaluation system for full operational use across the government of Uganda. I thank you, and I say all this for God and my country.
I think my role here is going to be a very easy one. The PSST and the Minister have already laid the foundation for this report. And in your packs, you have the detailed report. So what I'm going to do here is to take you through the highlights, high-level highlights of our annual report, and then we shall have a discussion thereafter. So, DPI is one of those 20 programs under the National Development Plan 3. And we all know that its goal was to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the implementation of the National Development Plan. It's cross-cutting in nature and focuses on improving government's ability to mobilize the resources, plan and budget, implement, and monitor and then account for results. It's coordinated by the Minister of Finance, and that's why the PSST was here as the program working group head. And of course, he does that in collaboration with the National Planning Authority, Office of the Prime Minister, Office of the President, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, Minister of Public Service, Minister of Local Government, and other institutions, including oversight institutions like Office of the Auditor General. It's headed by a program working group, and we have a program implementation action plan that was launched at the beginning of the NDP 3, very similar to the one we have just launched this morning, and that has been our main guideline in the operations we have been running. Slides have gone off on my side, on the screens here. So NDP 3 is anchored under objective number 5 of the National Development Plan 3. And of course, objective 5 under NDP 3 is strengthening the role of the state in guiding and facilitating development. And like we heard from the PSST this morning, this program is intended to address the slow plan implementation, the weak implementation, and alignment between the National Development Plan and the MDA and local government budgets. And of course, we all know that these were caused by weak implementation and planning and budgeting, the weak M&E systems for supporting implementation and policy planning, the limited financing and fiscal management, the weak coordination, and systems for development planning. Under NDP 3 and the DPI program, we had 6 objectives. Our first objective is strengthening capacity for development planning. The second one was strengthening budgeting and resource mobilization. The third objective is strengthening implementation capacity to ensure a focus on results. Number 4, strengthening coordination and reporting frameworks and systems. And then 5, strengthening national statistical systems to generate data for development. And finally, strengthening the research and evaluation function to better inform planning and plan implementation. So these are the 6 objectives that were handed to us under NDP3 as a program, and these are the objectives that this report will try to address. From these objectives, we have 9 outcomes, expected outcomes. The first outcome is effective and efficient allocation and utilization of public resources. The second one is effective public investment management. Third one is improved service delivery. Fourth, effective use of data for evidence-based policy and decision making. Number 5, improved development results. Number 6, improved compliance with accountability rules and regulations. Number 7, improved budget credibility. Number 8, fiscal credibility and sustainability. Number 9, improved public policy, debates, and evidence-based decision making. So out of our 6 objectives, those are the expected outcomes once everything has been done properly. And we'll see whether we had enough resources to do all these things or not. Now we have how we are measured as a program. That is our high-level measure, 6 key result areas. Once we have gone through each of the objectives and done all the outcomes as identified, the key result area number 1 is 80% of NDP3 targets by end of the NDP3, which was 24-25. You already know the result on this. The PSST was very clear on it. He even told us the 80%, I think, was not good enough. We should have aimed at 100%, but we shall see how we perform. Then the second key result area was increase the GDP growth rate from 6.3%, that was as at 2017-18, which was the baseline, to at least 7% per annum. So we should have been generating a GDP growth rate of not less than 7% per annum. But then we shall see how we performed. Revenue to GDP, we expected to move from 12.95% to 15.43% as a rebased by end of the NDP3. Budget alignment, this was supposed to increase from 60% to 85% at national and program levels. Supplementary budgets expenditure, net of loan financing, servicing, was supposed to remain within the 3% as prescribed in the Public Financial Management Act of 2015. And then domestic areas as a total of expenditure for the previous year was supposed to move down from 1% to 0.2%. So now we can go through each of the key result areas and see how we performed and what some of the factors that affected us. But before I go there, let's start with financial. Did we have the resources? So as a program, in 2024-25, we had a budget When you look at our total budget as a program, it looks so big. I think we take the biggest share. But out of that, what is left for our operations as a program is so small, actually less than 5%. Most of the money is for debt repayment, as indicated there. So our approved budget as a program for our core activities was 1.5 trillion. And of course, when you add the debt repayment of 34 trillion, you'd think we got 36 trillion, and everybody would say, what did DPI do with that money? But most of it is for servicing debt. So that table, I think you can go through it yourselves and analyze it. I'll not talk so much about it, but just a brief commentary. Debt repayment is a dominant item in that budget, taking about 95% of the whole allocation. Our operations remain with only about 5%, and that is for all the 22 MDAs. So the 1.5 trillion you see there is not for municipal finance alone under DPI, but is also for financing activities in all the other 22 MDAs that are part of the DPI. Of course, we see strong fiscal execution with all 100% of the revised budget released to the program, but 95.7 was spent by the end of the year. From the external development part, 94.5 was utilized. Releases to the program had a 5% addition, which is supplementary. And the key lesson from this is that we see there is solid execution, but there are some structural risks coming from supplementary financing. Let's go to each of the 6 key result areas and see how we performed. The first one, achieve at least 80% of the targets under NDP3. We're able to move finally to 60%. You know, we started off very badly. During midterm review, we had 17%, and it looked like we're not heading anywhere, but by close of NDP3, we're somewhere around 60%, but that is still below the 80% mark. And the key reasons here, there were major gaps. We saw from the PSST's communication, we all know that there were too many data gaps. We had too many indicators. I think at one time we were almost hitting 6,000 indicators, most of which we were not able to collect data for them. We still see weak integration of planning, budgeting, and monitoring and evaluation. It's like each one is standing alone. The three are not working in sync. And so it becomes very difficult to deliver the 80% expectation when these ones are not working in sync. Coordination remains a problem, and it's still a key challenge. And it's something that we need to work on under NDP4, and we are trying to. And of course, when you look at the whole NDP3 with all the constraints that came through of COVID-19, it remained as a big wish list. Lots of things that we had hoped would happen were challenged by COVID-19. And of course, some of these had to be reprioritized, and the initial 80% could not be in our picture. So NDP4 now focuses on data systems. I think you saw this morning, we launched a system. We're also thinking of having fewer, smarter, and measurable indicators for that purpose. So that's how we performed on key result area 1. We didn't achieve it, but we tried at 60%, given the circumstances. On key result area number 2, the expectation was that we sustain a GDP growth rate of not less than 7% per annum. And from that graph, you can see we're starting at 6.2. So sustaining the 7% was not going to be a problem. But the impact of COVID-19 and other shocks like locusts and Ukraine war, you see, pulled us down to a 3%. So instead of starting from the baseline of 6.2%, we pulled down to start from a 3%. But as you can see, we have been able to build it up gradually, and we closed the year at 6.3%, but still short of the 7.2 target of fiscal year 2024-25. Of course, there were also delays in oil and gas investments, which slowed our expected stimulus. If this had come in on time as expected, I think the 7% annual growth rate would not have been a problem. We have seen the National Human Resource Development Plan developed by NPA, and this is expected to drive GDP growth through innovation, jobs, and strong manpower planning. We have also seen under the NDP 3 improvements in service sector, tourism, and sustained investment in infrastructure, which are credited for the rebound. Coming from a 3% and rebounding to 6.3, I think we must congratulate ourselves, because it's like having so many retakes, but you still make it. On revenue to GDP growth, we're able to improve from 14.2 in 2023-24 but this was still below the 15.43 target. So you can see our 14.2 was still off the mark. Of course, our tax base remains very narrow. Our informal sector is becoming larger. I think at one time we projected that it should be reducing from 51% to 40-something, but we saw that it went in the other direction. So we have a lot of work to do in the informal sector. However, we see that IRAS rollout by the Local Government Finance Commission was able to improve local government revenues from 8.3 billion in 2020-21 to 157 billion by close of the NDP3. I think that is a big input. Then we also have big data analytics and use of artificial intelligence in tax audits, and this has somehow improved our performance, and I think URA should be credited for that innovation. Tax registration and expansion project was able to add 729 taxpayers in the fiscal year 2024-25, and a total of about 3.7 million throughout the 5-year period of the NDP3. However, most of these remain small, and enforcement needs to be done. And you find that most of these are only probably applying for a TIN number to do one transaction, but they're not very active in the register. So, National Lotteries enacted a lotteries and gaming fees regulations, which was able to bring in 8.8 billion in 2024-25 alone. However, we see that leakages through corruption, tax exemptions, continue to undermine our revenue growth. So going into NDP4, the key lesson is that we should broaden our tax base, we should strengthen compliance, and reduce informality. And that's the only way we shall be able to achieve the expected 18-point-something revenue to GDP ratio that we saw this morning. Under key result area 4, domestic areas as a percentage of expenditure, we don't have the exact number for 24-25 as this was still pending audit, but domestic areas have continued to remain a major fiscal management challenge. and we think this is undermining government credibility and private sector liquidity. And we also think that accumulation of arrears continue to undermine our budget predictability. So it's something that we need to address under NDP 4. From the Auditor General's report, we see that arrears accumulation is exceeding the settlement. So we are adding more stock on our arrears than we're actually paying. And in 2023-24, we saw that 6.63 trillion was added in new payables to our stock, and only 3.6 trillion was settled. This is in the Auditor General's report. And we also see from that report that arrears rose sharply by about 31.5%, from 10.5 trillion in 2022-23 to 13.8 trillion. So we are holding 13.8 trillion of private sector money in government. And of course that affects the way they do business and also affects the cost of business. And most of these relate to court awards, utilities, pensions. So if we paid all these people, probably that would be a big stimulus in the economy, and our GDP growth would probably do better than it has done. In 2021, the Ministry of Finance developed a strategy to clear and prevent domestic arrears. However, this has not shown much impact over the NDP 3 because we see that arrears have continued to be a problem to us. So we think that this signals fiscal indiscipline and undermines private sector confidence. And I think it's time that we put into action the strategy that was developed in 2020-21 to enable us clear and prevent further accumulation of domestic arrears. On key result area number 5, annual budget alignment to NDP 3, which was supposed to be at least 80% from our report card, although the target for 2024-25 was that by that time we should have achieved the entire 100%. Because when you're coming at the end of it, you can't say for me to pass an exam, I would have written only 3 out of 4 papers. You must have written all the 4 and passed them. So that was the target. But what did we achieve? We only got 65.1%. And as you see from the graph, it has been an up and down performance. So we have not even been consistent in the way we perform on this key result area. So there was a decline from the other year from 71, and then we closed down to 65.1. EOC, gender and equity, was 68% against 80%. So even on that side, on gender and equity, we also didn't do well. Yet, like we saw, budget releases exceeded approved budget. However, we know that political pressures have always influenced allocations outside the PIAP. So we have a document that we all sat down and prepared and said this is how we are going to move, but the political pressures influence allocations that are not in that document. So we can't align. And then we also see MDA's budgeting for institutional priorities are not necessarily PIAP commitments. So institutions also come up with their own list and they make it a priority and forget that we have a strategic plan in form of a PIAP that as a program we are supposed to be aligning ourselves to. We see that PIP projects implementation on time was also below the mark, 67% against a target of 100%. Of course, weak program coordination continued to be a key challenge. In spite of capacity built by EOC and NPA in planning and gender and equity budgeting. So we have a lot of work to do, as you can see from the graph. At least we should have a consistent performance, but it's always up and down, and we need to correct that. Supplementary expenditure. This is key result area number 6. This has remained a big animal in the room. We have carried it over all the NDPs we have had in place. It's a challenge that remains. The only problem, as you can see from the graph, it is getting out of hand. At one time, we came down to 6.1. We thought we were doing well. Then spiked to 17. Then recently, at the close of NDP3, we're down to 9.1. And already from what you have been reading in the press, even this financial year, we shall be above the 3%. There's no magic around it. So we see that supplementary appropriations remain to be a major concern for the program, not only the program, for the country. The improvement from 17.3 in 2023-24 was there, yes, but still above the PFMA limit. And most of these supplementary budgets relate to infrastructure, energy, treasury obligations, security, and executive spending. And we think that this signals weak budget credibility, and they crowd out development spending, and of course reduce fiscal space for our peer activities. Some of these supplementaries, as you know, are not even funded. They have to draw resources from other priorities for them to be funded. So going into NDP4, the key lesson is that we need budget realism and stronger fiscal discipline under the NDP4. So pulling it all together, that is our report card. That is our performance. We failed. But that does not mean we can't do better. I think we still have opportunities to take lessons from the NDP3. It was our first attempt at program budgeting. We have not done so well, but we can do better. And I think those who have read the NDP4, and now if you go through the attendant PIAP that was launched this morning, you'll see that we are trying to do things differently. And we think that the performance of the program under NDP4 on the key result areas, which have expanded from 6 to 9, will be much better than this. And if you looked at the key result areas under NDP4, there are some things, I think, either because they have given us a headache, we have somehow not included them there. We have found a creative way of doing things, and I think we shall perform better. Things like supplementaries, things like domestic areas, we shall always find a way. Okay, let me take you to the challenges that we went through as a program during this journey. Number one challenge, which you could already guess, fiscal indiscipline, driven by weak expenditure forecasting, poor commitment controls, off-budget priorities, and poor enforcement of our cardinal law, the PFMA. And we are proposing that under NDP4, we should enforce the PFMA limits on supplementary budgets. We should strengthen commitment controls. And we should be strong in applying sanctions for repeated breaches. There are institutions that you can always tell that they will have a supplementary. They are there, we know them. But the question is, why do we continue allowing, so it becomes a habit? Number two, the escalating public debt burden that is shrinking fiscal space and crowding out service delivery, and development spending. Our debt is growing every other year. So you see from our allocation of 36 trillion, 95% is for debt service and can only get worse. So we think that we should enforce fiscal rules and commitment controls, improve value for money in debt finance projects, and ring-fence funding for completion of ongoing projects. I think this is tied to another challenge that will be coming under 4. Number 3, growing domestic arrears caused by under-budgeting for obligations and delayed cash releases. We have already seen in the report, domestic arrears, the stock keeps growing every year. In 2023, 22-23 and 23-24, we added 36%. That's significant. So we think that we need to implement the arrears clearance plan as indicated in the strategy of 2020-21. We need to strengthen treasury commitment controls and maintain real-time settlement or a register of these arrears. Because most of the time, they'll tell you we are not able to settle because the Auditor General was not audited. So why don't we have a real-time register for arrears? Undisbursed debt and slow project implementation. We sign up a lot of debt for projects that we are not ready to implement, and this continues to build our service obligations. So we think that we need to fast-track implementation of funded projects, strengthen absorptive capacity of MDAs, and address procurement delays and counterpart funding challenges. Number 5, escalating corruption, which I think Office of the IG at one time says we lose about 10 trillion. So if you can imagine if we saved that 10 trillion and added it to the activities we implement, I think we will realize better performance. So we think that to fight corruption, we need to strengthen oversight mechanisms, automate audit trails, and integrity reviews. Number 6, weak accountability for results across government. I think that is now, with the system we launched this morning, if it is operationalized, if everybody commits to using it like the deputy head of service has tasked to do, and if we also strengthen APEX, which is our oversight body that was introduced under NDP 3, and streamline the inspection and implementation of audit recommendations, we should be able to do better on weak accountability for results across government. Number 7, alignment of planning, budgeting, and implementation. We have seen from the report that we're not able to get even the 80%, which was an understatement on our own selves, like the PSST said. Even under the gender and equity part of it, we're also not able to get the mark. So this continues to be a challenge, and the proposed action we are giving here is that we should institutionalize alignment checks at budget approval and strengthen enforcement of PIAPs. Because PIAPs are our strategic plan that we have committed to as a program. So if we continue to fund priorities that are not in the PIAP, then it's going to be very difficult for alignment. Program secretariats remain non-functional due to resource gaps and lack of harmonized structures Under NDP3, I think it was only about 3 or 4 programs that had functional secretariats. The rest, they were just being creative. But I think this is going to be a thing in the past, because under NDP4, we are funding secretariat structures. I think DPI is recruiting staff to help out in these secretariats. We have launched an M&E system that will be very key in tracking performance of these programs, and of course these secretariats are going to be very important. The program coordination unit at Office of the Prime Minister was not operationalized due to inadequate funding and unclear institutional anchorage within the Office of the Prime Minister. Under the program arrangement, the Office of the Prime Minister is supposed to have a program coordination unit that coordinates all the 20 programs. So even DPI were supposed to be reporting to that unit. Unfortunately, it never started. So we think that under NDP4, we need to allocate a budget to operationalize the program coordination unit. We need to clarify the reporting lines within that unit between OPM, NPA, and Minister of Finance. Who reports where and why? Then we had PIAP activities that were not well funded because of limited fiscal space. Those of you who have attended our program working groups when we are doing allocations, you know the kind of resources we have. You know the kind of challenge. And you know that most of the times when we go through our PIAP, we pick out all the priorities, but there is no money. So they remain, as the PSST said, unfunded. And he was wondering, where do you get something called unfunded priorities? Yes, there are priorities in our PIAP, but the resources are not there to move them forward. So that remains a challenge to us, and we think that we need to rebalance allocations to strengthen coordination, monitoring, and evaluation and planning. So we need to strengthen these things. We need not to just come up with a list of items from our PIAP, but there's no resources. Then data, which has been a key challenge. Statistical systems caused by incomplete metadata, fragmented platforms, limited ICT capacity, and funding. Under NDP3 midterm review, I think we found out that we have close to 6,000 indicators, most of which, I think 54% or something thereabout, we could not collect the data. So our statistical systems were not able to pick information on indicators that we ourselves sat down and developed. So we think that we need to improve systems for collection and use of administrative data. And of course, to add to that, like the PSST said, we need to develop fewer but smarter indicators. Then lastly, limited participation of local governments in our activities due to centralized coordination, weak representation in program working groups, and sometimes inadequate technical capacity. The program approach has been largely driven from the center. When you go down at the local governments, they are still struggling to find how to align themselves as a local government to all the 20 programs, because they are the area of operation. And yet they don't participate in our program working groups, which are the anchor body for making decisions on behalf of the program. They don't participate in our technical working groups, so they're just on the receiving end. So we are saying that we need to strengthen local government participation in DPI structures, probably by establishing district coordination platforms We need to enhance capacity building and funding those structures that we are developing for them. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for the wonderful performance of the program.
Please allow me invite Mr. Mugabi, who is going to make a presentation on behalf of RIP, and he will have 15 minutes to run us through this presentation, and then we'll go into plenary.
RIP is the Enhanced Reform Enhancement and Accountability Program, but essentially RIP is you and I. All of us are really RIP. And RIP is an implementation framework that brings together key members in the reform results chain, maybe, I would say, to deliver on the commitments under the DPI program, particularly the PFM. I will try to fit within the said 15 minutes, and that means I'm going to be extremely very fast-paced in the interest of time. So the presentation is as follows. I'm having a quick introduction that is providing context for this particular annual review. We're having a PFM assessment framework to see how we measure results, and we're having level one. Level one is performance per PEFA. That is to do with strengthening really operational wellness and health of the PFM results. Then we'll have a quick overview of the actual commitments that we had and constraints thereof, and ultimately we'll have challenges. Then I'm requested to have an overview of the next phase, and as well as the final reflections for DPI review, for this particular review. So we say in terms of context, we know that government has been doing this since the 1980s. We always like to say that, to know that we are always just putting our brick on efforts that have gone before all of us. And we know that last financial year marked the end of the cycle of the PFM reform strategy that ended 24-25. And as such, I have been requested to do a quick 4-year perusal of where we've been, and then also lead us into the next phase. And therefore, we're saying that the current focus of the PFM, the outgoing one, and always will be, is to do with aggregate fiscal discipline and allocative efficiency and operational efficiency, and that RIP is coordinating all of us together and as part of that operation to deliver the same. And I want to highlight the fact that we've been working through clusters under the DPI program, and these PFM clusters are constituted around the 6 strategic objectives of the PFM reform strategy. At this point, I want, of course, because it's constituted by development partners, civil society under CSBAG and other implementers, I wish to thank you all for the sustained participation in that process. Because reforms are a bit tricky, you need all hands on deck, such that we hold ourselves accountable. At the same time, of course, we want to thank the development partners in that cycle. That was KfW, EU, and DANIDA, wherein we're able to finance most of the elements under the PFM chain. That one of which have just been celebrated, which is the M&E system for the NDP4. And that is something we want to thank. I will invite you to clap for them in absentia, if for those of us who came with our hands. That's what people say. All right. And so for purposes of just an overview, the last cycle focused on the following 6 strategic objectives. One was resource mobilization, the other was policy-based policy planning and budgeting. The third one was PIMS. The fourth one was accountability systems being strengthened. Fifth being local government systems being strengthened for better service delivery, as well as PFM oversight. So those are the 6 strategic objectives for in the last cycle, along which we will be seeing our level of performance. So with regards to PFM assessment framework, here it's just to see how is it that we measure results under PFM in particular. Remember, this presentation is building on the last, and that's why I'm going to go a bit faster also. The first presentation was at a higher level, so this one's at a lower level by way of operational effectiveness of the PFM results. So in that regard, we have the PEFA. You've been hearing about that. PEFA, the PEFA we've been undertaking since 2005. It normally is focused on the functionality, the procedural functionality of the PFM reforms. How well are we doing? how things are being set, what are the building blocks, what are the actual things taking place on the ground. And then, of course, you have the systemic diagnostics that you've been participating in, which is PIMA, and then TADAT for tax administration, DEMPA for debt, and the rest. And then we have also a risk-based performance review under the PRAM, under PEMCOM, and then the midterm review. And as such, the results I will be sharing are extracted from these diagnostics for purposes of independent context. Okay. So level 1, which is at now intermediate level, remember I said what Mr. Kakala has presented as at a higher level outcome now is at intermediate. We know that PEFA is doing the functionality, assessing how well we are doing. And the last one was 2022, but because of the delays, it was published in August 2024. And as such, it is relevant for us to have those conversations because some of the benefits, the performance, we are able to do what you call scope creep into the performance, and as such, it still bears relevance. So even if it says that 2022, but it says that from 41% in terms of performance, we're able to improve to 50% as a program that is coordinating PFM as a country, and that the results over the 4 period were recorded from pillars on pillar 2, transparency, pillar 4, accountability, and the least favorable, we were trying to avoid to use the worst, where we need to improve according to PEFA is external scrutiny and audit. The key findings in there, the strength we found, number 1, from 2016, I'm taking a 4-year take from that time, that macroeconomic and fiscal policy formulation is now informing strategic planning. In other words, the MTF is a bit more connected to the strategic plans to an extent, and that right now the revenue administration has been strengthened, where all revenues are being collected through a URA, including local government. We've already loaded the efforts from LGFC that has been covering the part that was not adequately covered through IRAS. Then we're having improvements in budget formulation and the rest. So those are the elements that were being loaded for as part of strength. And then the areas for improvement, one of them is policy formulation, where we need to take better account into previous year's actual performance. We're being asked to improve revenue forecasting for better outturn, as well as public assets performance that is not actively reported. And then number 4, which is to do with improvement of enforcement of internal controls and regulatory framework, as well as accuracy of annual budget estimates. Number 6, according to that independent review, we were found wanting when it came to performance at service delivery units, improving predictability of both timing and quantity of funds received at service delivery units, improving budget challenge function, that is the extent to which we can challenge our budget, challenge what we put inside. Are we best placed to be able to our current mechanism? So whereas the level of our budget preparation is great, we're now being tasked to see that what is actually planned for reflects the requirements. And then they are calling for more technical support to the parliamentary oversight function to fulfill that mandate, reviewing and scrutinizing medium-term plans, as well as better tracking of recommendations. So number 3, quickly, and physical progress, really, we're saying that of the 67 major interventions and actions in the reform areas that we committed to under the program in the PIAPs as well, it means that we're able to cover about 85% of those, which was a big recovery because by midterm review, after COVID, around there were 22%. But the sub-program was able to recover in that regard, as well as only leaving about 3 core actions that we did not take under advisement. So these are the general achievements trying to presented across the 6 strategic objectives. Number 1, to do with enhanced resource mobilization for financial sustainability, as seen from the previous presentation. The key thing that highlighted there was the tax policy reviews. The DPI program was able to redraft the VAT laws, income tax laws, tax procedures, as well as the capacity for taxation in digital economy and enhancing oil and gas legislative frameworks. Those are some of the key notable elements and reform areas that we're able to go through. The challenges there that were being pointed at PFM level is that whereas IT SIMs for tax and customs have been introduced to improve tax administration, data quality remains weak. So there's a large number of inactive taxpayers in the database, which makes it difficult to make realistic projections. As well as we're having issues with high development needs that are outmatching our expenditure. Really, at the end of the day, we end up, or what we collect, we end up spending in paying debt repayment. So it's that kind of thing that we are supposed to be filling up. Number 2, on enhanced policy-based budgeting and planning for allocative efficiency. The first one is that one of the key elements that were achieved is the full implementation of program-based budgeting, alignment to NDP3, and by close of the program, NDP4 alignment was fully supported to match the program-based approach. Then the other issue was that it was observed that the aligning of the budget strategic plans had initially taken downward trend, falling to the 63.4%, and this is consistent with the previous conversation that we're having, that right now it rose to 71% in terms of alignment, at least on paper, whereby the things that we are committing are aligned. But of course, then there are challenges right now, which is the multi-year planning, which requires capturing realistic projections in annual budgets and MTEF, as well as, and this is echoed by Mr. Kakara's presentation, and that is seeing us see the supplementary budgets and in-year budget adjustments. And the other issue is the one that the PSST was very keen on, which is the results-based approach requiring change management. Ladies and gentlemen, whereas we have made progress on the PBB, the concept itself or results-based planning in as of itself still suffers. People still think of themselves as departments, even if on paper we have organized ourselves around programs. So you can see it in the way you plan in your program working groups, where we have now the mandate to share resources and all that. So you can see that sometimes I don't envy those who sit at a point to say, you know what exactly are you bringing on the table? You know, going beyond our mandates. So that is going to be the biggest part of our reform area and element, whereby we can transition beyond the paper presentation of the same. C, strengthening PIMS, really. The benefit is that we have a strategic shift wherein we're focusing now on the whole value chain, improving project preparation, independent review processes being strengthened. We are taking use of appraisal, independent appraisal for project selection, enhancing procurement and reporting. Now, the PIM policy was drafted. They know by close of the last cycle, it had not been finished, but I know as we speak, we have completed. And then the DC and IBP are now supporting compliance with the PIM guidelines. The idea of the support to the IBP is that the guidelines are automated such that people don't have to cram them, such that at least there's that kind of compliance. The challenge we have right now that we observed in reality is that the MTEF does not provide an effective constraint on the new public investments. So what we are observing is that the portfolio of existing projects is far larger than the potential financing in the medium term. And so also the forecast of total commitments and cash flow requirements from MDS. What are we talking about here? We're saying that one of the issues we're having with regards to PIM is that when, and this is a conversation that has been taking place right now also, is that when you are in your working groups and you're supposed to determine what projects enter the PIP, how do you determine what enters, what doesn't enter? Because right now the Minister of Finance have control over that. The control has been ceded to program working groups, isn't it? So we have to have a scenario, a world where they have the capacity to manage the appetite on the projects we put in the MTEF. Otherwise, then we have more than we can afford to put. And that is one of the challenges we're now going to face. C, continued, there is the asset management being strengthened and asset management frameworks. The challenge now is that whereas we have strengthening of the frameworks for asset management, the key issue now we're having right now is the need to shift to accrual accounting. So because the current cash basis does not effectively reflect the real government operations, and that also encapsulates one of the key reform targets for Accountant General in the next phase. With regards to PIM, still under this public procurement, we saw and enjoyed the harmonization of the PPDA Act and the PPD regulation that used to be an issue under that 2021 dispensation. Now the central government and local government are using the same law in order to do the procurement, which was a problem. The problem is that then it also delays EGP, because now EGP had to undergo business process review to match that very kind of engagements that are being talked about in the regulations. Also, there's still, of course, issues to do with other issues to do with the capacity building that come in that, but at least that is what we celebrate in terms of the business process improvements. Number 4 of 6 is the strengthening of accountability systems and compliance, where it is seen that the budget execution, accounting, and all of that was able to improve by way of the integrity. We saw that, and also we saw that there was an improvement of the chart of account in order to align it with the PBB on the PBS system, so that allows us to spend accordingly in line with what we put in the PBS. The challenge we have there is still the compliance with the PFM Act as regard to the commitment controls. Then we have issues in improved local government PFM systems of service delivery. That is how we performed. The key things that we enjoyed there, I think the focus in that was deepening reforms on own source revenue mobilization, and you can see the results that were highlighted from Kakara's presentation. The challenge we have still is financial and human capacity constraints, as well as the fiscal decentralization elements to do with the capacity for them to plan for themselves, as well as allocative efficiency at that level. Trying to fly through, strengthening oversight and PFM governance function. That is how we performed. We have most of those conversations that took place, particularly downward accountability, where we are seeing that we are able to have the systems for tracking recommendations. That becomes very critical in closing the loopholes with regard to performance. The key area now is value for money audit, where we have to have efficient overview on how we perform in terms of risk-based audit, right from Auditor General to parliamentary oversight. So those are the interventions that were not able to take place by clause of RIP, which is to do with local government parks, and other element to do with engaging with fora on accountability local government. I will invite you to read through the presentation on that element so that I can go through the other areas. The ongoing interventions that have been rolled over to RIP, those are the ones: Project of Saving, multi-year forecasting, asset management, EGP, and the SCAT. SCAT is a simplified computerized accounting tool for lower local governments. So right now, whereas IFMIS is at the votes, the schools, the hospitals also needed a software to do that, because they have the bulk of the accountability budget. The challenges we have, those are the ones at a high level: the disruptions from COVID, though we recovered, the delayed implementation, because when reforms require policy changes, that takes a little longer, because the value chain for doing the same is a bit longer, and you shall see that across the DPI program. And then, of course, change management for new reform in terms of the P4R modality to meet that. The next phase of reform, and I think this is the final slide, is that following approval of PEMCOM, the DPI program and stakeholders reviewed the strategic direction and adopted the following strategic direction in terms of the PFM reforms. And so this is going to span from 2025 to 2030. The key thing that you'll see across is the need, what we're trying to look at, how we can strengthen linkages with the tenfold. And so you can see that repeated in the next two final slides. Objective number one is strengthening the sustainability of fiscal frameworks for policy-based planning and budgeting and debt management, as well as driving the national agenda. The key element there, what is new, what is going to be seen, is going to be the budget challenge function, the ability for us to push back, the ability for us to critique our budgets, because right now everything's okay, but what is it do we do when we get these things from bottom-up approach? And so you are going to see a strengthening of program secretariats to critique everyone in the budget cycle, from NPA, the role of budget analysts. When you receive the budgets, what do you do with them? What are your capacities? How do we push back? You're going to see more elements on the diversification of financing. You're going to see climate financing coming through, and more savings. So right now, I think savings from wananchi really to be able to contribute to the envelope. And so some of these reforms we will be inviting you to participate. Number two, you're going to see optimization of revenue mobilization. What is new right now is expanded tax base. You're going to see more of the foreign direct investment and new players in domestic direct investment. You're going to see players more in tax compliance systems, including tax dispute resolution, so that we can release most of the money again that we hold back to the private sector. Number three, we are seeing public investment coming up again, but then again, because of what we talk about, we are now, what is new is MTF realism with regard to PIMS, as well as the deepening asset management and maintenance. We are seeing number four, PFM controls still making a comeback in there, but what is new is trying to see how we can reduce fiscal risks coming up from state-owned enterprises, and as well as other completing unfinished business with regards to HCM and EGP and other systems that we require as part of our controls mechanism. Number five, we have strengthening subnational PFM systems. That is to do with local governments. What we are going to see in there, again, what is new is allocative efficiency, including fiscal transfer systems, such that we can improve statutory planning, as well as local economic development. These are elements that will lend us a closer tie to the tenfold program. And number six, finally, is PFM oversight and accountability. In conclusion, and the key reflection that we had here is that the new PFM strategy is going to strengthen the link between PFM and impacts, and that will require domestication of PEFA. That's something we should be talking about a bit more, as well as strengthening external review. So whereas the PFM scores, what we are saying is that you can easily get a very high performance with PFM scores. You can get A in budgeting, but when the budget itself does not represent the real needs of the real people. So that is the next level of reforms. So whereas the fundamentals are in place, we are not going to push ourselves to a level where we can hold ourselves closer to the actual impact of PFM, which is to do fiscal credibility and sustainability, allocative efficiency, and efficiency in service delivery. We are going to see our elevation from the normal conversations in PFM to elements to do with the new players, to do with things like economic and commercial diplomacy. Anything that brings in new revenue, anything that takes us closer to the people, that is what the PFM reforms are telling us to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much.
Let's appreciate Mr. Mugabe further, ladies and gentlemen. He managed the time that we gave him, and he's done very well, taking us from the beginning up to the end of the presentation. So I earlier on indicated that we are taking your questions and comments through the QR code. So we are going into plenary, and so please allow me introduce Dr. Asuman Gulova from NPA, National Planning Authority, and I want to invite him to come to the stage. And I will also ask our two presenters, that's Kakala Godfrey and Mr. Mugabe, to join our chair for the plenary, so that you know, we need to have this conversation going. We'll start with some of the questions and comments that we're going to flag on the screen, but then also open up to the audience so that we are able to hear from each other. The presentations could have triggered a lot of discussion that needs to ensue. So please allow me to hand over the microphone to Dr. Gulova so that he can steer us for the next about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll be heading out for lunch. Doctor, over to you.